All right, hello and welcome to the What Happened to Music podcast. We're here today to talk about using a metronome.
And how you should use it.
Well, that's the controversy, isn't it? So,
I feel it's a very fake controversy, but somebody always says it.
so the origin of this topic is that if you go on, forgive me if I'm wrong, a lot of rock forums especially, but
Rock drums, rock guitar. There's always going to be somebody who ends up saying, "Oh, you should practice to a metronome," which I firmly believe. Yes, you should practice to a metronome,
yeah,
a significant amount. And then someone always says,
it'll hurt your feel, man.
"It'll hurt your feel."
It'll hurt your feel. You'll play too metronomically.
Oh, you'll be like a robot.
Yeah.
If we could only be just so perfect. If only I could have the issue of I have this unwavering sense of time. But I guess some people don't want that.
Like that robot who plays Giant Steps.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
I like that.
I mean,
one.
I wish I played that well.
So let me ask you a question. Do you practice to a metronome, and how often do you practice to it?
Every time I get a good practice session and I practice with a metronome, that's just part of the routine. You go through your etudes and exercises, and here's your click. I'm trying to get from this speed to this speed.
Yeah, I don't consider it a practice session unless I've actually had the metronome out for a little bit.
Honestly, part of my session too is I'll just practice keeping straight time with a a recording and making sure I'm not speeding up or slowing down physically.
Well, let me ask you a question. Are you a rusher or a dragger? And we should probably explain this. And I don't think, and that's when people will talk about you don't want to be too metronomic. They're not even thinking about, are you playing on the beat? Are you playing behind the beat? Are you playing ahead of the beat? Like, these are not even things that the
Right.
people say you shouldn't use a metronome are even thinking about playing where you're physically placing the beat. Are you able to change that?
Right. So, just a real quick explanation. When you play in time, there is a little space, a little give in that you're playing in time. Whereas if you're playing on top of the beat, you're still in time, but you're just slightly ahead of that dead center right on the beat. If you're playing a little bit behind the time, you're still in time, but you're just a little bit off of
Yeah,
that
this is all
exact
considered.
mark.
Yeah, this is all considered in time. I mean, certain players
Right. There's a
play
little range
behind
where
the
you're
beat.
in time, but
Slayer plays ahead of the beat, for instance.
I mean, I would probably be a rusher. I find myself, especially if I try to play something up tempo, I like, whoa, no, I need to like pull it out a little
to
bit.
rush 16th note runs. So all of a sudden
same.
you get tick. All of a sudden that tends to. But again, because of a metronome, I'm at least aware of this because obviously the metronome isn't wrong, and you get that really weird. There's got to be some sort of science where your brain says that the metronome's wrong, even though it's just a heartless clicking machine. Like
Right.
you've experienced that, where you just go, "Oh, the metronome's slowing down," or "The battery's got to be off."
Nope. But what I actually did some recording work with a group recently, and some of the tracks they had a click track, but there were some they said that no, the click track is throwing this off. We think it breathes a lot more naturally. How would you respond to something like that?
That's fine, but you can't do that if you're multi-tracking it.
That's
If you're doing it as a group, I mean, obviously, a good classical string quartet isn't going to record to a metronome, but they're also recording at the same time. They're not going and then I'm going to assume that the violin player on the next part's going to be coming in. I mean, if you're multi-track recording, I don't see why you wouldn't be recording to a metronome.
Gotcha.
If you're recording it all at the same time, then it doesn't make sense. I mean, unless you're going to have a click in the ear, and then of course, if you're making the scratch track, you can technically work all those things out.
I mean, for if somebody encountered me like, oh, I'm not using a metronome, that's taking away my feel, and you're a worse musician for doing that. I would just point to that's a skill, being able to play with a metronome, being able to play in time, and then after you master that, being able to control the time as you want,
Musically,
because
yeah.
you're in complete mastery of that. If you're not doing that, you're cutting yourself off from a skill. That would be like looking at saxophone and saying like, I can't play those altissimo notes. Well, anybody who does that is stupid and they're not good musicians. It's like, no, that's just a skill that they possess. I would like to try to have as many skills as possible.
Well, yeah, I mean, you should be able to play without a metronome. You should also be able to play with a metronome. I mean, I've met people who couldn't record to click tracks. They're not very good.
But it's the drummer's job to keep time, John.
Oh, that's another argument. Oh, it's the drummer's job to keep time. It's everybody's job to keep time.
And that comes from the head of percussion studies, Dean Whitten, at our old college.
Well, I mean, on those duo gigs we play, we usually let the drummer keep the time.
Well, there's your point exactly. Who's keeping the time then if we're not keeping time and we don't have a drummer?
Yeah, so when we do a sax and guitar duo, although let's face it, we we eventually settle into some sort of tempo.
Yeah, so
that's
everybody's got to keep time,
and that's a deficiency on me. It's letting that rush.
Self knocking ourselves aside.
Self-awareness.
If we didn't practice with a metronome ever, we wouldn't be able to lock in.
I mean, some people don't even realize it.
Right.
I mean at all. I mean, just they don't even have a concept of it. But yeah, I mean, I feel firm. I mean, I feel like there's usually places. But if you're saying that you shouldn't practice to a metronome because it's going to hurt your feel, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's like saying that learning how to read music is going to hurt your improvisation. No, what hurts, your improvisation is not improvising.
Got to master the skills to pay the bills. So, how do you feel? Do you think that we're big jerks for telling you, hey, that metronome should turn on once in a while? Or do you agree with us that playing with a metronome is essential?
And let us know how much you practice to a metronome, whether that be 50% of your practice or just your warm-ups or, just on certain pieces and when you don't use it. But, comment.